welcome to PCF 989 project update. Today we are doing the installation of the piston rings and everything else so that we can start the engine. So as we promised, we want to show you or to rather to ascertain that the piston rings that were worn out were actually worn out. So we are going to do a demonstration of the old piston rings that were causing the vehicle to smoke versus the new piston rings that we are installing. So with me here, I have a vernier caliper that I'm going to use to measure the bow, because sometimes when the rings are worn out, also we can have a case scenario where the sleeves are also worn out. So the first thing we have to do is to verify that the bow is not worn out. So this one, the manufacturer says, is actually 96 millimeters. I think as you can see from here, so a cylinder bow of the inner diameter is 96 millimeters up to 96.01. so let us see whether it's actually 96 millimeters. So you set your vernier caliper to 0 and then you measure. Uh, 95.9. I think that's the maximum we can get at 96 millimeters. So I won't do for the rest, but for this one is actually 96 millimeters. So the next thing we need to measure is the piston ring end gap. This is the gap that the rings are clear at the ends. So we are going to start with the oil because the vehicle was smoking so much. So we had postulated that the oil rings are worn out. So according to the manufacturer, the oil rings end gap should be between 0.2 to 0.4 millimeters. So let us measure this one first. So from my feeler gauge, this is 0.2. I don't know whether you guys can be able to see 0.2 millimeters. Just a minute. Okay, it's okay. So as you can see, is actually quite wide. So 0.2 is, you can get through. So we had tried to measure previously. So even if you use the one, you can see still clearing at 1. So you see this is 1 millimeter. So the end gap is actually more than 1 millimeter. Yet the manufacturer says it should be maximum of 0.4 millimeters. So now we can be able to ascertain that the oil rings were actually worn out. So how does now the new one look like? So here, for the purpose of this demonstration, I had put the old one. Here I have put the new ones. So again, this is supposed to be 0.2 to 0.4. So if I measure with the 0.2 to 0.4. So here, if I use the 0.2 feeler gauge, it can be able to clear pretty nicely. So this is very important, because if it is less than 0.2, we would actually have a problem, because this gap is needed for expansion. Now if this gap is less than 0.2, it would mean that at operating temperature, the expansion will close the gap and the ring is going to warp. So we are okay with 0.2 millimeters. So we can see, let us try to see whether we can be able to measure around 0.3 millimeters for the new one. Yeah, is almost not getting through, as you can see. So we can say the gap lies in between 0.2 and 0.3, which is actually very good for a new oil ring. So now let us go back to the measurements, to the manufacturer requirements. For the oil, we have seen that the old one was way worn out and the new one is well within the recommended dimensions. So now let us also do for the first one, which is actually the compression ring. You remember this vehicle did not have so much loss in power, so we had thought that the reason why it was still having enough power is because the compression rings were still okay. So how do we verify that? We are going to check whether the old one is actually between 0.27 to 0.39. So here I get 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.27. This is 0.27. Okay, 0.27. Okay, we use 0.27 to measure. This is the old one. This is the old one. This is the new one. So 0.27, it can still clear pretty nicely. Whether you guys can be able to see. Yes, it can clear pretty nicely. For the new one, it can still clear 0.27 pretty nicely, which, as I stated earlier, it is very important to have the minimum, to clear the minimum, because of expansion when the engine is at operating temperature. So let us see this old one, how worn out was it. So first it clears 0.27. Let us see how. Let us try 0.3. So this is 0.3. Okay, let us try 0.3. We see it can still clear 0.3 pretty nicely. The new one is still can clear 0.3. So let us try 0.35. For the old one, this is the old one. It can still clear 0.35. This one cannot clear 0.35, the new one. So the new one is within the recommended dimensions, because for the first one is supposed to be actually 0.27 to 0.39. So now if you have been able to follow, we have actually been able to ascertain that the compression rings were within the manufacturer recommendations. That is why the vehicle still had enough power with it, and the new ones, the ones that we are putting now, are within the manufacturer recommendations as well. So I hope you guys have been able to follow. So what we are going to do now is we are going to assemble everything. Once the vehicle is ready, we are going to start, and we are going to do actually also a compression test to confirm that everything is okay. So I hope you guys were able to follow. Stay tuned and stay with us. Thank you.